Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Tim, and welcome to another Indie Friday. This week I've got a game for you that I think is muy chido, Guacamelee. This game was released back in April and August of 2013 for the PS3, Vita, and PC users, but was only recently released to every other platform early in July this year. The game starts you out in the bedroom of our hero, a humble agave farmer named Juan. Just look at him. Doesn't he look heroic? A hard, chiseled, slack jaw, only the finest in tattered clothes, and a slouch your mother would be proud of. And from there we set off for the church for a bit of tutorial. But when the cry of El Presidente's daughter is heard, Juan answers the call and meets the twisted charo Carlos Calaca, who quickly dispatches Juan and makes off with the woman in an attempt to take over the worlds of both the living and the dead. Speaking of the world of the dead, that is not surprisingly where Juan ends up. There he finds a mysterious statue with an even more mysterious mask and a woman named Tostada. This woman explains that the mask will give him supernatural luchador powers and will allow you to return to the land of the living, but only if you agree to rescue El Presidente's daughter and stop Calaca. And this is where the game really begins. The world opens up before you, and quickly you realize that this platforming brawler has some paths that may not be available to you. Some paths that look like they require certain moves to unlock. Now I know what you're saying, and about this point I said the exact same thing. Is this a Metroidvania game? Well, the short answer is yes. I think the technical term I'm going to use is Recursive Exploration Action Platformer, or REAP. But most people have portmanteaued the most popular examples of this style of game into Metroidvania. To show you why this game earns being called that, we have to break down what makes up a REAP game, and how this game uses the individual components to create a smooth and very cohesive whole. So the first ingredient in a Metroidvania game is a wide, fully explorable world that has many linked locations sprawled across it. As you explore, you'll find certain areas that'll be exposed that are blocked off. Those areas are usually denoted in some way. Guacamelee uses red, blue, green, and yellow blocks, which correspond to certain moves. And these will either give you something good or lead you to some sort of puzzle for fat loots or lead to an entirely new place on the map. But you can't get to them yet because whatever is stopping you requires some sort of skill that you have not acquired yet. Which brings in the second part, the progressive singular storyline that pushes you, the player character, forward. Guacamelee is actually a very well-paced game, with the length between starting a section and reaching its next story point being fairly short and fairly consistent. Not to mention that there are checkpoints littered across the map, which makes quick saving before you exit very easy. Each different zone, each different boss fight, each different story point is amusing, challenging, and often rewarding, with there being a total of 12 different special moves to learn from Uechivo, an old shape-shifting hermit who calls himself the Lord of all Goatmen. And pay no mind to the obviously not a Chozo statue, we'll talk about that later. Where was I? Oh yes, the story. As you complete maps and defeat some of the really neat bosses, new maps become accessible to you. And the new moves you've learned let you reach those hidden areas in older maps. But at all times, the focus of the story is on your personal empowerment and how that will help you complete your goal. So that becomes the biggest driving force as you backtrack and collect the heart pieces that extend your health, or the skull parts that extend your stamina. But this game goes even further with that. Not only are the special moves seamlessly integrated into the combat once you acquire them, but the variety of puzzles and challenges that all of the secrets lie behind means that getting no two collectibles will feel the same. Guacamelee also added towns with NPCs to interact with, entire side quests to be completed, and a gem that illustrates new combos to you with every move you learn. Which gives you a lot of money, so I would not skip out on that. And it's all done with a style and sense of humor that makes traveling to the next place a joy because you genuinely want to know what the next piece of the world will look like. One of the other main functions in a REAP game is the world map. In Guacamelee, you get to see how every zone is connected to each other. Not only that, but every zone has its own smaller map, which fills in automatically as you explore. These kinds of maps are critical in a Metroidvania game because it makes going back and exploring the old areas much easier, because usually there's some sort of marking or denotation as to where the new areas lie. A key to the map is never directly given, but the implication is simple. Each individual area is represented on the world map by a bronze medallion that turns gold once every secret has been found. As for the area maps themselves, the color bricks we've already covered. Chests appear on the map that denote their contents. There's a special one for health, a special one for stamina, as well as many others for gold or other special items. There are also fast travel stones, and the map shows how doors connect to other rooms. So when all of these components are done well, the one thing you never feel is lost. But there are these particular portals, and those are the things to pay attention to. It's an easily missed secret that certain statues around the world denote challenge spots leading to Guacamelee, and an item that is essential for getting the best ending to the game. But as I said, the actual backtracking you'll have to do is fairly easy, remembering that there is a store/changing room/checkpoint almost around every corner, as well as having the fast travel system and certain moves that you get later on that make traveling across maps much easier. So in our little cookie we're building, if the world is the sugar, then the story counts as the chocolate chips that entice us forward, and the combat system would be the flour that binds everything together. And Guacamelee certainly does not fall short on its namesake. Punches will fly, suplexes will fall, and you'll be throwing bodies left and right. But every move from the lucha launcher to the dashing derp link to each other, which means that every new special move gives you new combinations to try out, as the combo chicken will tell you whenever you go back to town. One important thing to remember, especially in the later stages, is that Juan is considered invulnerable when he is throwing a stunned enemy, so you can use that to your advantage. The moves that aren't unlocked by progress are unlocked at the store, as well as heart and stamina pieces, best saved for when you have 2 out of 3 and need that one last piece to fill in the section. Going back to the moves, the suplex mentioned earlier, for example, is capable of knocking an entire room of enemies on their butts, interrupting any attack that may have been happening. But you also put yourself in more risk than simply just throwing the enemy from a distance. And there are a wide variety of enemy types, each unique in its abilities and attack style, which makes strategizing on the fly much more fun and easy. And as any good brawler should, it feels really good when the combos start getting higher, and some of your moves seem to actually kick off a little faster, and the pace of battle picks up significantly. Especially if you're playing in the unfortunately local co-op only, where one player can throw a victim to another player, keeping even the most dangerous enemies completely out of the fight. But it's the flavor of this game that really brings it to life, starting with the art style and music. The Dia de los Muertos theme is very heavily felt in this game, obviously, and the brightly colored world reflects the brightly colored personalities that live within it. And the music lends itself perfectly to each individual zone, with versions of every song available for both the living and the dead worlds. A certain power you unlock later allows you to change between the living world and the dead at will. And once I found this out, I went to each and every zone, switching back and forth constantly, just to see the little things that change. The love extends further out into the world itself, with references to the real world, pop culture, other video games, and a whole lot more sprinkled in everywhere, such as the Chozo statues. And now for the problems. The story itself is not incredibly long, clocking in at just around 6 to 8 hours if you choose not to explore around. The game will be a lot tougher because of it, but it is possible. I will say this about the game's length though. It may be physically short, but it feels Portal short. Where a complete story is told, the experience does not overstay its welcome, and you're left feeling very accomplished at the end, having not had to grind through a whole lot of chuffa to get there. Of course, the end of the story is only the beginning because the game hosts a couple of other challenges as well. There's a hard mode unlocked after beating the game that lets you replay the game with the harder enemies, keeping any costumes you earned in earlier playthroughs. And since they do have certain stats allocated to each different costume, it's about as interesting as changing clothes should be. And there are 2 sets of challenge stages, the Caverna de Pollo and El Infierno. But those are usually beaten within that first playthrough, especially if you have the inclination toward exploring everything thoroughly, like I do. And there are a few problems in the options menu as well. You do have some resolution, VSync, and AA controls, but you don't really need much in this game. And you do have music and sound effect independent audio controls. But funnily enough, you can rebind the keyboard keys, and you can assign different control schemes to the characters, but you cannot rebind the controller inputs. Every button is used in some way, but it would be nice to have some sort of customization in the layout. As usual, it's a small gripe that can easily be patched out later, but any oversight in a game that was so thoroughly thought through on most other aspects sticks out that much more, so it is worth mentioning. So when you take all of this information into account, the lovingly crafted world that is filled with things to see, people to help, and hidden secrets to uncover, a combat system that is incredibly tight and responsive, not to mention flat out fun to master, And the music, oh, that beautiful music pumping through your ears. What you're left with is a video game experience that feels familiar and yet one of a kind. So strap on your boots, find your inner Lucha, and head on over to their website where you can buy it directly from them, or visit Steam, which has various versions with and without the soundtrack available for $19.99 and $14.99 respectively. You'll find those links down below, and thank you so much for watching, everyone, and as always, we'll see you next time.